Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Environmental Protection Commission. Today is October 21st, and we will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance and an invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. And please remain standing for a little invocation. Let's start from a place of gratitude today and give thanks for the beauty, the wonder, and the miracles of the natural world that has been entrusted to our care. And let us pray for wisdom, understanding, and strength, so we may be the very best stewards we can be of the environment we are charged with protecting. Amen. All right, and Commissioner Stacy White has sent a memorandum explaining his absence. He'll be unable to attend the meeting this morning due to an unavoidable conflict, and asked that I read the reason for his absence into the record. I know Commissioner Kemp is on her way, but she'll be a little bit late. But I believe we have a quorum. Let's check with a roll call.
Chair Smith?
Here.
Overman? Here. Cohen?
Here.
Hagan?
Here.
Kemp? Myers?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. And Ms. Doherty, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Commissioner.
Okay. Anyone needs to remove any consent agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Thank you. We've got a motion to approve by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Cohen. We'll take a roll call vote.
Chair Smith?
Yes.
Overman?
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Hagan?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. And now we move to a bittersweet portion of our agenda where we will recognize the retirement of Mr. Andy Schipfer, and I'll turn it over to our EPC Director, Janet Doherty, to take us through this item.
Thank you, Commissioner. And it is a bittersweet moment. I've been at the agency now for almost 6 years. I came in 2015. Andy's been there for 37 years. I selected him he came from the Waste Division when I selected him. But I do want to tell you that he worked with Hushang Bustani for 37 years. And so Hushang will be conferring this honor and talking about Andy. But I just want to say how proud I am of Andy, how honored I am to have selected him. He has been an amazing wetlands director. And as many of the commissioners here know, that is no easy feat. The wetlands is a crucial part of balancing property rights and the environment, and he has done it flawlessly. Andy's family is with him, and Hushang will talk about them. But one thing I would like to say about Andy, he is such a critical thinker, and in our senior management meetings, he offered some suggestions that nobody had actually thought about many, many times. Big picture thinker. And I appreciate that because I'm not an engineer, and I'm more of a left brainer than a right brainer, and he's great with numbers. If you ever want to know anything about FRS, or monies, or know the budget to the dime, he's got you covered. He is just a critical thinker. And I just want to thank him for everything that he did and everything that he accomplished. He just got a new boat. Picked it up on Monday. It's a beautiful Key West boat with a big Yamaha motor, and so he's going to keep going fishing. He lives in Riverview. And as a quick side note, I'll say Hushang and Andy and I are tied together. 5 years ago, I gave each of them a puppy, a very energetic, they're called Droth Hours, but they're bird dogs. And so his dog is Thor, my dog is Rowdy from that litter, and Hushang has Hubu. And I appreciate his love for the dogs because when they're puppies, they can desecrate some of your personal belongings and they're very high energy. And both of them, we all love our dogs very much. And so we're tied together with Thor, Hubu, and Rowdy. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hushang Bustani to recognize Andy Schipfer.
Thank you, Janet. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everyone. I had a strange feeling introducing myself. For years and years, I introduced myself as EPC staff. But today, I come to you as a private citizen and a retired EPC employee. I am very grateful for the opportunity to present my friend, Andy Schipfer, who will be retiring, I believe, 28th of October is his last day after a long career at EPC. Prior to doing that, I know, having known Andy for all these years, that family is very central to everything that he does, everything that he thinks. So it's my pleasure to introduce Andy's wife, Tina Schipfer, who's sitting next to him as we speak. Tina is a retired Hillsborough County teacher, so public service is in their blood. Andy and Tina have 2 children. Kristen is married and has a baby girl, a 2-year-old baby Leah, who has brought so much joy to everyone's lives. And their son Ryan, who is an accountant who just recently graduated from UF and works here in Tampa. Andy and his 2 sisters, Cindy and Candy, were born and raised here in Hillsborough County, and currently all 3 of them live in Hillsborough County, not far from the Alafaya River. Tina and Andy also, as Janet mentioned, have 2 dogs. Thor was given to Andy by Janet, but they also have Rocky, and they love their animals. Andy Schipfer came to EPC in 1984. He has served EPC and the citizens of Hillsborough County with distinction and is retiring after a lifetime of service totaling 37 years. He came to EPC as a chemist with a chemistry degree to work in the Water Division laboratory. In '86, he decided to transfer to water engineering of the Water Division, where I worked. So Andy's and Hushang's partnership dates back all the way to 1986. He was a founding member of the Waste Division, which was formed in '89, served as the assistant director for the next 25 years until his move to the Wetlands Division. While at EPC, he decided to have an engineering degree, so he registered back at USF, and in 2000, he had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree in civil engineering, and a professional engineering license. In 2016, Andy accepted the opportunity to support the agency in a time of need that led him to the Wetland Division. Using his considerable engineering skills and years of experience as an assistant director, he supported the Wetlands Division during a critical time when the division was in need of a senior professional engineer. He performed engineering and permitting reviews among other duties, which proved to be valuable assets to the Wetlands Division. As a result of the skill and professionalism that Andy displayed, and his quick study in navigating and applying wetlands rules and regulations, he assumed the role of interim wetlands director in May 2017. It didn't take long before he became a permanent full-time division director in October 2017. He is one of the very few EPC members that has served professionally in 3 of the 4 operational divisions for the agency. The EPC and the EPCers are going to miss the wealth of knowledge that Andy has brought to the table and the unique perspective that he brings to problem solving and addressing issues concerning the environment. Next. Do you see the slide, the next slide?
There we go.
This is a photo that Andy took from his dock and the one that he had chosen for his Lifetime Achievement Award. The inscription on the picture reads, "The Lifetime Achievement Award is presented to Andy Schipfer in his recognition of a lifetime of dedicated service and 37-year commitment to protecting natural resources for the citizens of Ellsworth County. Love and best wishes, your EPC family, October 28, 2021. On a personal note, I want to give my own thanks to Andy for 30 plus years of working side by side with me. I can honestly tell you that my own career at EPC was drastically enhanced for having Andy by my side. So Andy, you're a brother to me and I love you. And I wish you well and welcome you to the retirement community. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, thank you. And Andy, I know you probably want to say some remarks, and obviously Tina, I think Ryan is on the phone, so I don't know if Tina and Ryan want to say something, and then we'll let Andy go afterwards.
Well, it looks like Kristen's made it in. I'm not sure that Ryan was able to make it in. I saw her name
okay.
on it.
Well, if
But,
Kristen would like to say something, that's fine too. Kristen, would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure. You know, my dad has been with EPC, and I apologize, my daughter's in the background playing currently.
That's my granddaughter. No apologies necessary.
She just woke up, so. But, you know, my dad's been with EPC longer than I've been alive. I have fond memories of going in and just seeing everybody in the office, Hushang and a bunch of other people that have retired over the years and some that are still there. It's been a big central focus of our life. My dad's been a very dedicated employee and steward of the environment while he's been there. So I know that he's going to be greatly missed, but I know that he's about to enjoy retirement. So I'm very happy for him.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tina?
Yay. Oh, I am just so proud of Andy. It's just been wonderful to watch all that he has done. And I mean, even the times when there were, you know, hurricanes out there and he's still going out on call to try to make sure that the citizens are protected. You know, it's been such an honor, you know, and I'm so very proud of him. We're looking forward to retirement, and I thank all of you for honoring him.
Well, thanks. You know, I did have a couple of things to say. I wrote them down, so I might repeat a few of the things that Hushang had said in my introduction. But Hushang, thank you. That was a very, very kind introduction, and I appreciate it so much. I just wanted to start out. I get to still do this one more time. Commissioners, good morning. Andy Schipfer, EPC staff, Wetlands Director, and soon-to-be retiree. So next time I'll have to do what Hushang did and just say, you know, retiree. But first of all, I'd like to identify that it's been my greatest honor to serve the citizens of Hillsborough County for the past 37 years. Second, I would like to recognize Tina, my wife, who's sitting next to me, making me look better, and also Kristen, who's online, and Isla and Ryan, who are watching from afar. So, you know, I didn't come to EPC by happenstance. For me, it was a place where I knew I could make a career. It was a place where I knew I could serve the public, and a place where I could strive to make a difference in the place where I was born, where I grew up, and where I call home. My childhood was spent right here playing in the woods in South Brandon, recreating in the Alafaya River. My dad lived on the river, and I do today, and swimming in the springs and enjoying Tampa Bay. I am a product of the Hillsborough County school system. I graduated from Brandon High School in 1977, so go Eagles. My university training was at the University of South Florida. Hushang described that already, but go Bulls. And like Hushang said, I joined EPC as a chemist in 1984. EPC was very much a natural fit for me. I spent several months after I graduated convincing a gentleman named Tom Cardinell that I would be an asset for EPC. And something unique about Tom, he doesn't always get mentioned, but Tom was EPC's very first employee. He came over from the health department back in, I think it was 67 or 68, but he was the first one to come in. And Tom was a great mentor to me. His name is on our lab at the Roger Stewart building. He was in charge of the laboratory, but he was also, because he was the first employee, you know, he was a jack of all trades, and he was able to share some of that with me in my very first year and a half that I worked with EPC. And like him, I was a little bit of a journeyman. I worked in the lab first. I worked on the water sampling team. I was the backup there, where I got to go out and do some of the sampling runs and take samples around Tampa Bay, and then come back and analyze them in the lab. That was a unique experience. And then I went into compliance investigation, where I did complaints for both solid waste and domestic waste, and I became the domestic waste compliance inspector. And then I moved into permitting, ultimately in supervision and management. And as Hushang described, I appreciated Hushang's mentorship. He was my supervisor and my friend for nearly 30 years in the Waste Management Division. And the thing that I really enjoyed about Hushang is he always gave me the freedom to explore ways to, as how we regulated waste and develop proactive ways to take contaminated and blighted sites and clean them up for valuable reuse. And that's something we still do today. We were actually a leader in brownfields before brownfields ever started. Together, we developed the old landfill program, which ultimately became part of brownfields, something that Hushang and I worked on together to get solid waste facilities, old dumps, to be recognized as brownfields, and they are today. So that was a really good experience in there. I was also blessed to work under the leadership of three great directors. The late, great Roger Stewart, I worked for him for about 15 years, and then Dr. Garrity for a little more than 15 after that, and then my final 6.5, it's getting closer to 7, Janet, I think, but my final 6.5 years for Janet. And Janet, I want to thank you the most. You know, you provided me that opportunity to be part of the Wetlands Division, and you selected me to be the director over the past 4.5 years, and I just appreciate that so very much. I love protecting wetlands. I love working with some of the most wonderful, dedicated people a person could ever have the good fortune to work with. And as I leave EPC, even though I had those 25, almost 30 years with you, Hushang, and Waste, I leave proud to be a wetlander. So to this board and the citizens of Hillsborough County, my hope is that I provided a service worthy of your trust, and that my work that I left behind left the environment in a little better shape than when I started. And I just wanted to thank you so very much for this opportunity to speak today, and all the colleagues that I've worked with through the years, and EPC just for continuing to support the EPC as an agency. They do such wonderful work, and I just want to thank you very much.
Oh, I'm not. Andy, thank you so much, and we love you, and all the best in retirement. And this is the first time I've seen you without a goatee. But you couldn't have said it better. You know, you support the mission, the agency supports the mission as well, and we just love you and wish you all the best, and look forward to our hybrid festivities next week so we can honor you even more. Commissioner?
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. And Andy, I'm sorry to see you go, but glad to see you go on to your next chapter after 37 stellar years and a fine career with our Environmental Protection Commission. You know, EPC is a regulatory agency, and enforcement of our wetlands regulations, it takes a firm hand and a good understanding of the facts of and the science and the data in order to, you know, be effective. But it takes special people to be part of this community protecting our wetlands and our environment. Wetlands, EPC protects a lot of different aspects of our environment, but wetlands, as Janet Doherty mentioned, is a very important and sometimes tricky, sometimes the most difficult decisions, but some of the most important decisions. Protecting our precious wetlands, which ultimately protects our rivers and our bay. And these are so important to the citizens of Hillsborough County. That's why we have this special and unique EPC in our county, and we're so lucky to have it. But we are especially fortunate to have such dedicated people as Andy Schipfer and so many of the staff that we have in EPC. And we're now going through a period of retirement of some of the key people. Losing Mr. Schipfer's 37 years is a huge chunk of institutional knowledge. But we are also fortunate that so many of the longtime employees have formed an alumni association of EPC, staying available for those they've left behind and to help with the transitions and to help those coming in. And mentoring and being a resource. So Andy, are you committing to the alumni organization and being available? Can we still keep you on speed dial here?
Commissioner, I'd be happy to answer any of the commissioners for speed dial anytime and anybody from the EPC. I'm a lifelong resident of Hillsborough County, and like I said, I joined EPC because it made a difference to me. And I plan to stay right here on the rivers and the bay and continue to do what I can to help out wherever I can. So I appreciate that offer, and yes, I'm happy to help out.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your service on behalf of the whole board and the county. We are all very grateful for your years of service and wish you very well in your retirement. You look happy already. So I hope you continue on in a happy retirement.
Thank you so much.
And from there, I'll ask for public comment. I don't think we have any last time I checked, but I'll check one last time.
There is no public comment.
Okay. And we will. Did we already approve the consent agenda?
No.
No.
Did we?
Yeah, I think I did that in
the.
Sorry, I did that in the wrong order,
Awesome.
but hey, one less thing. And that moves us to the regular agenda. So the EPC Annual Report for 2021, I'll turn it back over to Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I will say that alumni group's very helpful. Since I started, 30% of the agency has dropped, or 25 to 30%, and I probably have another 25% in the queue right now. And I appreciate Andy volunteering, but Jerry Campbell leads that group, and he calls that people together. And so we have the think tank is not gone. Hushang's a phone call away. Jerry Campbell, Andy, Mike McDaniels, any resource for the new people coming on. So thanks, Andy, for volunteering. Appreciate that. Commissioners, this report is going to take approximately half an hour. This is our annual report, and it's a pleasure to come before you once again to report on our agency's progress, programs, and initiatives. This year, our theme is the environment of champions. Oh, before we do this, we probably need the slides. Yeah. We give this every year. It's a meaty presentation. Some of the newer commissioners will get a lot out of this, and the public always gets a lot out of this presentation every year. So again, it's a pleasure to come before you once again to report on our agency's progress, programs, and initiatives. This year, our theme is Environment of Champions, and it recognizes the dedication and diligence of our staff who continue to champion our environment every day, even during these challenging times. Next slide. Our theme also recognizes the unprecedented recent success of our pro sports teams in the Tampa Bay area, and winning teams always have a structure for success. At EPC, our mission, vision, and values provide that framework to ensure we remain focused on our goals, and we review them annually as part of our strategic planning process. Next slide, please. The agency's core functions listed here come directly from our Enabling Act. Each of these core functions are integral to our mission and the protection of the county's environment and quality of life. We maintained an unwavering commitment to ensuring we met our core functions, even during the COVID state of emergency, and I'm so proud of the high standards of excellence demonstrated by staff during these challenging times. I'd like to point out the quote on the slide, which is, "Hard days are the best because that's when champions are made." This quote was provided by Gabby Douglas, our first African-American all-around Olympic champion in gymnastics. Next slide, please. Back one. Here's a list of our delegations from agencies that have entrusted their programs with us. We operate 15 different environmental areas programs across all 4 divisions. Next slide, please. Our Wetlands Division safeguards groundwater, surface water, and provides natural flood mitigation while preserving wildlife habitat and coastal shorelines. You've heard us say it before, but it is so true. Wetlands are the kidneys of the environment, helping to filter and purify our water. Next slide. It is a team effort to conserve our natural resources in Hillsborough County. The table to the left shows the numbers of reviews completed and permits issued this year. The graph to the right shows that new applications received for activities in wetlands have more than doubled in the last decade, while the number of staff dedicated to processing them has increased by less than 20%. Next slide. Ensuring wetlands within Hillsborough County will be around for years to come is vital to our mission. Looking at the graph to your left, through education, pre-application meetings, and discussion of alternative site plans with applicants, the proposed impacts were reduced from 77 acres to an approved total of 55 acres. The figure on the right shows the impact acreage for those approved projects. As you can see, 50% of the approved wetland impact projects had less than a quarter acre in impact size. Next slide, please. This chart identifies the approved wetland impact projects based on the development proposed. Of the 55 acres of impacts permitted during the reporting period, over 6 acres were for landfill redevelopment, almost 2.5 acres were for road projects, and 16 acres were for government-related projects. And I think the bulk of that was a runway at MacDill Air Force Base. Next slide, please. The figures before you demonstrate the wetland impacts, mitigation, and conservation easements that have been constructed during the reporting period. The graph on the left captures the impacts that were completed and the mitigation that was provided to ensure there is no net loss of wetland functions. The figure on the right documents the conservation easements that were required for mitigation projects and those that were given voluntarily to EPC from property owners. Commissioners, a conservation easement is an option to protect a property for future generations, but it is not required for every wetland mitigation area. Through education and working with the development community since 2014, EPC has received 585 acres of conservation easements. For comparison, that is more than 443 football fields. And I'd also like the commissioners to know that those easements are in perpetuity. Not all conservation easements from different agencies are in perpetuity, but EPCs are. Next slide, please. EPC offers one-stop permitting, which saves time and money, not only for the citizens of Hillsborough County, but also our sister agencies. The Wetlands Division accomplishes this through multiple delegations and memorandums of understanding. In 2022 through 2021, more than 890 of the permits issued were from at least 2 agencies, and of those, at least 530 were completed for 4 agencies. When we all work together, it results in a win for everyone. Next slide, please. While wetland protection remains our focus, the commitment to the public for seeking efficiencies is also a top priority. This year, EPC brought in a consultant to assist with the process mapping and to conduct efficiency training within the staff of the Wetlands Division. In the upcoming year, we will continue to use the knowledge gained from this training to seek additional opportunities for improvement within the agency. We also made revisions to Chapter 5 of the Wetland Basis of Review. The updates provided clarity to the rule as well as memorialized exemptions for activities that are a benefit to everyone. Next slide. Our Air Division is responsible for guarding and enhancing the quality of air we breathe. While we monitor the local air quality levels, the Air Division also inspects air pollution sources, investigates complaints, and maintains limitations on certain noises. Next slide, please. Our air monitoring network is one of the most valuable players of the Air Division, with an extensive volume of data acquired over several decades. Data collected by our staff not only determines our compliance with the federal air quality standards, but it is also used to set standards for future rulemaking. To the left, our monitoring staff typically found out in the field, ensuring that we maintain around-the-clock monitoring of the primary air pollutants. And to the right is a map of our air monitoring network. We are currently in compliance for all federal air quality standards, despite EPA tightening those standards over the years. Next slide, please. EPA's Air Quality Index ranks air quality levels from good to hazardous. Overall, our local air quality is good, and we experience only a few days each year where the air quality is unhealthy for sensitive groups. Since TECO and Mosaic upgraded their pollution control systems for sulfur dioxide, there has been a general decline in the number of unhealthy air days. In recent years, ozone and fine particulate are the pollutants that typically drive the AQI numbers. Next slide, please. Air Citizens Response Section investigates air pollution complaints, issues burn authorizations to developers, and houses one of the few local noise pollution control programs in the state. We also operate an asbestos compliance program on behalf of EPA and the state. Next slide, please. The air permitting and compliance sections regulate various sources of industrial air pollution. They ensure these facilities follow local, state, and federal rules. Construction permits are a high priority because they correlate to growth and could lead to new job opportunities. Our permitted facilities consist of over 200 industrial sources within the county. Next slide, please. The EPC's Waste Division is responsible for ensuring the proper management and control of solid and hazardous waste through its state contracted and state delegated activities, as well as its independent permitting, compliance, and waste generator education programs. Next slide, please. Under contract with the FDEP, the EPC has managed the Petroleum Cleanup program in Hillsborough County since 1998. The EPC's Petroleum Cleanup program works with and manages the activities of state and local contractors who oversee the cleanup of properties where petroleum discharges have occurred. Next slide, please. Like the Petroleum Cleanup program, the EPC has managed the Storage Tank Compliance Program under contract with the FDEP since 1989. Our routine tanks compliance activities ensure proper storage tank operation and maintenance, thereby protecting our groundwater resources. Next slide, please. Via formal delegation from the FDEP, the EPC has managed the Brownfields redevelopment program in Hillsborough County since 2004. Redeveloped brownfield sites in Hillsborough County have increased property values by approximately $78 million over this past year. The EPC continues to work with both the FDEP and the Florida Brownfields Association to encourage and streamline the redevelopment of old landfills as brownfield sites. Next slide, please. By state mandate, all counties are required to establish a small quantities generators notification and verification program, and EPC has maintained its program since 1991. The SQG program is self-funded by user fees, and to date, over 16,000 businesses are registered as potential generators of hazardous waste. Our program is based upon education and compliance assistance to business owners and operators, and since 2016, compliance rates have significantly increased. Next slide, please. Our Water Division protects surface and groundwater quality through the implementation of monitoring, permitting, compliance, and enforcement programs. And we especially want to thank our laboratory and field scientists in what has been a very challenging year due to increased water sampling resulting from emergency discharge at Piney Point and the impacts of red tide. Next slide, please. Commissioners, we always like to show you the Bay's report card each year. And this slide represents the status of the Bay through the end of 2020. Across the top are the 4 Bay segments. The orange indicates poor water quality, and the green indicates good water quality. The Bay has dramatically improved since EPC began monitoring water quality 5 decades ago. As I stated previously, Tampa Bay has had some serious challenges to contend with in 2021. We mentioned the red tide in Piney Point. Obviously, we just had a presentation on seagrasses as well. However, we remain optimistic about the Bay's ability to recover from any potential impacts that recent events may have caused. And of course, I'm aware you're working on the fertilizer ordinance, and that would help reduce nutrients to the Bay as well. Next slide, please. To help address environmental concerns related to the red tide, EPC hosted Congresswoman Kathy Castor's roundtable discussion with local and state scientists, fishing guides, and elected officials such as Commissioner Cohen and State Senator Janet Cruz. The forum served as an informational exchange between stakeholders and Representative Castor, who pledged once again to fight in her district and in Washington for the resources necessary to ensure Tampa Bay's continued restoration. Next slide, please. The Pollution Recovery Fund, housed in the Water Division, provides grant monies for projects to mitigate the effects of pollution. It is funded solely by administrative penalties obtained through enforcement. Since 1987, the PRF has provided over $8 million in grant funds for over 170 environmental projects. These funds are often leveraged with other funding sources to help pay for much larger projects. This slide shows all of the active projects. Next slide, please. The Administrative Division and Legal Department supports our 4 operational divisions. Our admin and legal teams maintain budgets, ensure compliance with overarching regulations, and provide state-of-the-art technological enhancements. They apply a winning combination of job expertise and timely, quality work which benefits staff, the public, and ultimately the environment. Next slide, please. Our priority remains the safety and protection of staff and the public. The effect of COVID-19 on the agency since its onset has resulted in certain changes to our operations, and we've had to adjust the way we do business as the need arises, including the acquisition and use of personal protection equipment and enhancements of technology. Work activities did not slow down during the state of emergency, and in fact, were greater than expected. I am proud of our staff as productivity remains high under the hybrid work schedule. Next slide, please. In 2021, we communicated with staff through regular administrative updates and conducted 2 separate surveys to ask for staff input on the overall working environment and their satisfaction. The results demonstrated the highest overall employee satisfaction since these surveys began, and staff indicated they have sufficient resources to effectively work remotely. Additionally, we created a multi-divisional EPC focus group. The group meets on a frequent basis to solicit feedback from staff in person in order to identify and address their concerns in a timely manner. Next slide, please. Diversity is a priority at EPC. As you can see on the charts, more than half of our staff consists of females and about 1/3 of staff are minorities. Under my tenure, we have added 4 minority division directors and 1 assistant director. Next slide, please. Our goal is to be responsible for the fiscal resources we are given. Once again, we are on track to return monies to the general fund this year, and we continue to bring in nearly $1 for every dollar we receive from the county. Next slide, please. This past year, all of our operational divisions have been subject to some form of an audit by an outside organization. In 2021, EPC had 41 audits evaluating our performance. We use these audit results to improve our programs. Next slide, please. EPC staff are always ready to respond to environmental issues and concerns as they arise. Several high-profile environmental events occurred recently that required staff to perform additional water quality monitoring as well as multiple focused site inspections. Many staff hours were spent coordinating with other government agencies, sharing data analysis, and responding to citizen inquiries and media requests. Next slide, please. As you can see from the summary of the agency's complaint activity, we not only receive many complaints, but we have been prompt in our response. Of the 1,499 complaints received, we've responded to our constituents within 3 days, 97% of the time, and have closed out nearly all complaints within 90 days of the time frame. While noise is the leading complaint type, EPC investigates a wide variety of environmental concerns. Next slide, please. While there certainly were adjustments required by staff in the response to the effect of COVID, I am pleased to report for the 2021 year to date that we are meeting almost all of our self-imposed metrics established for our core functions. We continue to investigate the majority of citizen complaints within 3 days and prioritize resolution activities in an effort to bring all operations into compliance timely. It should be noted that we established these self-imposed internal goals during the rigorous Sterling management process, wherein the agency set a high bar and elevated efficiency standards. These goals are reviewed annually as part of our strategic planning process. Next slide, please. Almost everything we do at EPC touches on the sustainability arena, from promoting clean fuel technologies to educating homeowners and small businesses on going solar, to participating in outreach education, to promote a sustainable future. In 2021, we continued our work with the Hillsborough County staff and departments on developing sustainability action plans to serve as a roadmap to preserve and protect our environment, economy, and the community. These are exciting endeavors, and we look forward to working with our partners to continue to foster a sustainable community. EPC staff, next slide, please. EPC staff continues to promote building resiliency to adapt to a changing environment and mitigate the impacts of climate change on our community. Staff remains an active member of the Climate Science Advisory Panel, where recommendations are published on the projections of sea level rise in Tampa Bay. In an effort to continue to raise awareness and building resiliency, EPC hosted a special presentation before the Commission in May of 2021 to outline our risks and local vulnerabilities and how we can move forward to abate them. Next slide, please. Businesses and teams aren't successful without dedicated training, and at EPC we believe training is very important. For example, the staff-initiated action plan endeavors to increase the knowledge of all staff to areas outside of their normal job function, leading to more efficient and effective customer service for our citizens. This action plan has been received favorably, has high attendance, and has earned positive feedback in a recent staff survey. Next slide, please. The environment and business feedback groups continue to provide us with useful advice, and we continue to listen to the ideas and concerns of both the citizenry and the regulated community. We met with both feedback groups this year. Next slide, please. 2020 marked the first time in decades that Hillsborough County and the entire state of Florida met all federal health-based air pollution standards. In October of 2020, EPA selected Tampa Bay as the location to make the statewide announcement, and the requested EPC host an event for the media release. EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler, Commissioner Smith, EPC staff, and other distinguished speakers, media, and guests gathered for a press release event near our Simmons Park Air Monitoring Station to commemorate this historic air quality achievement. Next slide, please. Community engagement is a strategic priority for EPC. While COVID continues to limit our outreach opportunities, we participate in face-to-face events whenever possible, like Commissioner Meyer's Kenley Town Hall meeting. Additionally, we helped facilitate the USF Community Air Monitoring Project in conjunction with the Transportation Planning Organization. This project is designed to educate, engage, and empower citizens to become citizen scientists within their community. Next slide, please. We also utilize alternative platforms such as podcasts to help us reach the public. We have implemented new approaches to several annual EPC-hosted and partnering events, including the creation of several staff-produced education videos for Wetlands Month and the USF Engineering Expo. EPC also collaborated with Florida Solar United Neighbors to usher the solar kickoff launch of the Greater Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg co-ops during the Super Bowl week. Next slide, please. Although our in-person Clean Air Month activities were tackled again by COVID this year, we adapted by hosting online events, including our 20th annual Student Environmental Photography Contest. Our theme this year was Treasure Our Environment of Champions, which encouraged students to recognize our local environmental champions and emphasized that we must all work together to protect our environment and community for the future. Submittals were so impressive this year that we had a tie for both second and third place. Next slide, please. As part of Clean Air Month, we also reached out to our community and our partners in our first ever Environment of Champions Photo Challenge. Over 50 photos were submitted by local environmental champions, from oyster reef restoration to collecting waste to planting trees and using battery power to get around town. Our local partners and citizens illustrate their work as our teammates to be good stewards and to protect our environment and community for the future. We're all in this together, and we applaud our champions for their great work and are honored to have them on our team. Next slide, please. Our Philanthropic Committee focuses on organizing agency efforts to have a benevolent impact on our community. Annually, the committee supports a number of local charity organizations, such as Feeding Tampa Bay and Metropolitan Ministries. In addition to gifts, cash donations to these various charities exceeded over $2,000 this year. In these uncertain times, EPC staff believes that it is imperative to help those in our community who are suffering and in need. Next slide, please. In 2021, we celebrated the retirement of 5 staff with more than 25 years experience of service, including former Waste Director Hushang Bustani and current Wetlands Director Andy Schipfer, who retires at the end of this month. We thank all of them for their lifetime of dedication and service to the citizens of Hillsborough County. Next slide, please. We look forward to 2022 with high expectations of ourselves, and we will strategically plan to address our known challenges, which are on the slide that you're viewing. We will, of course, continue to make our staff safety a #1 priority. Not knowing what the future holds with respect to the ongoing health crisis, we will remain adaptable, looking always to efficiently maximize resources and maintain flexibility. Increased workloads continue to strain existing resources, so we are already assessing our FY22 budgetary needs. We also recognize the importance of keeping pace with the constantly evolving changes in information technology so that our communication and information storages are secure. Next slide, please. None of EPC's success could happen without the dedication of our staff working together as a team. While we work hard to be everyday champions of the environment, next slide, please. We also enjoy being involved in the same community we live in and are challenged to protect. Many of our staff participate in outdoor activities and support our local teams as they strive for more championships. Next slide, please. So I want to personally thank staff for all their efforts in making 2021 a successful year, despite the challenges we faced. Next slide, please. And finally, commissioners, we appreciate all you do to champion the environment, our community, and our agency, which helps makes all of us winners. It's your backing that is vital to EPC's ability to operate as a first-rate local environmental program. We cannot do what we do without your support and involvement, and we thank you. Next slide, please. And with that, that concludes my annual report, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for a thorough and succinct report, considering how much has been accomplished this year during such a challenging time. Commissioner, I see a couple of commissioners in the queue. Commissioner Myers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What could I say about your report? It is so in-depth for me, and I'm sure for Commissioner Cohen, both of us, 2 new commissioners, just a wealth of information on what the agency has accomplished this year. And you could not have come up with a better theme, an environment of champions. And that's what your report showed this morning, how each you and your staff dedicated to become champions for environment. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I love the theme too, but I do need to give credit to Jeff Sims, Michelle Jenkins, and the Air Division team, because they were the ones who came up with that title and theme. But I do think it's very fitting in these times with what we're going through, and I do think an EPC is an environmental legacy and an environment of champions. Thank you.
Thank you for giving the credit where credit is due. I was crediting you. It seemed like such a Janet thing to go play off of Tampa Bay for Environment of Champions. Commissioner Cohen, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. You know, other than the regular duties that we do as a board together, the EPC is the only place where we all sit, all 7 of us, as a board. We serve on most other things individually or in groups of 2. And I think that it is a recognition of how important it is, the work that you do, that all of us sit on this board. I remember when I was running, there were people that raised the question of whether or not we should have an Environmental Protection Commission. And I thought the question was ludicrous then. I really find it more outrageous now, having been here for a year, because the work that you do, as was evidenced in this report, is so important to our community. And we saw it this year, particularly with the Piney Point disaster, with the red tide. You guys were and ladies were at the forefront of all of this, and you just do an outstanding job, and we really appreciate it. I do want to also just add, for a bit of levity, I'm looking, my glasses are fogged up, but this EPC mask that I'm wearing is one of the better ones that I've found in terms of keeping my glasses from fogging up. So I really appreciate that as well. And you'll see me wearing it a lot for as long as we're wearing masks, because it's one of the few that actually work for me. So thank you for that as well.
Well, you're welcome, Commissioner, and we're going to get some more out there. They were really hot items. At one point, I thought we weren't going to need them. Then there was a surge and they came back. But I will tell you, I do that with the bridge of my nose too. And what I end up doing so they don't fog is I let my glasses sit a little bit farther down, and it really helps. But yeah, I just had to do that for half an hour, and I like these masks too. They work very well. So thank you for wearing your EPC proud mask.
But in all seriousness, thank you to you and your entire staff for the stellar work that you do. We really are a better community because of it, and I know that you have our support in the year ahead to continue your excellent work, so thank you.
Thank you. EPC staff is the greatest.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I do, your report is excellent. It covers all the bases.
Thank you.
And actually, I expected no less. What I truly appreciate, you know, as a commissioner that's working on trying to figure out how we balance, you know, the environment and the growth that we have to anticipate, having the passion for protecting the environment, but at the same time, elevating and making a priority the efficiency of the way you operate with our residents, with our businesses, and with our community is such a pleasure to watch. Government is messy, you know, it just is. And frequently when our residents have to go through a process, a regulatory type of process, you know, there's this, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. This is going to be terrible. There's nothing good about this. You know, and we're just in the way. But what I really appreciate about the EPC is that is far from the case. EPC makes it easy for people to understand the goals, the needs, and work very closely with our residents to make sure that they get the information they need to make the decisions they need to make, without ever losing the integrity of the mission of protecting our environment. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. We've had an opportunity this year to see a lot of good government, and the EPC is an excellent example of that. And I just want to thank you for your leadership, your entire team, the fact that you're working on trying to figure out how to address the succession plan that you have to have in place, given the age of some of your most dedicated team members, is a testament to your management style and your leadership, and it's critically important. And I want to say thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, and very well said, everyone. And when people are talking about, us having this EPC as a regulatory agency, and it does sound a little scary, and it does sound like, why do we need it? But the fact of the matter is that EPC actually makes the regulation and the protection of our natural resources simpler and more streamlined the way it's structured, because in the first place, EPC can help with at the planning stages of any project to avoid wetland impacts and help people understand, wait, don't put the driveway there, put the driveway over here, and you're gonna sail through. And they're very helpful in that regard. It's of helping out ahead of time. And then the other thing is, it's not another layer of regulation. It actually consolidates layers into one in many cases, because the other agencies that would ordinarily review things in other areas have delegated their authority to our EPC. So EPC is like one of your slides said, one-stop shopping. You come in and EPC handles a lot of the state and other agency reviews all at one place for you. So it really is a boon to not only our environment, but to the regulated community to have things done the way we do them, and then end up with the best protection that we can get. So it's win-win-win. Commissioner Overman, are you back in? Okay. Seeing no other comments, thank you again for a thorough and informative annual report. Very well done.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I would like to add to that, it is all about protecting the environment, but also when you look at these slides, that some of the things that stuck out to me was the economic benefit. We gained from revitalizing brownfields $78 million this year on the tax rolls this year. We talk about, we always have better flood insurance rates in this county because we protect wetlands. Mm-hmm. And then when you minimize impacts to wetlands, and there's little wetlands all around, that's great for the wildlife and for the environment, but it also provides for tourism. And we know what that means mm-hmm. to Tampa Bay, right? So that quality of life. So there's also there's an environmental benefit, but there's also an economic benefit too.
And finally, when we do have to regulate and fine anyone for pollution, we turn that money back in and invest it into the pollution recovery fund projects and make it worthwhile. So
exactly. And I think this in 2020 and 2021, we gave out $356,000 for environmental projects. And when that's leveraged with other monies, that's real dollars helping the environment. So there's an economic benefit too. And I think hopefully people, when they come into the agency, realize that as well, that it's good for the environment, but it's also good for the bottom line.
Thank you. And we can move now to the next item. Commissioner Myers, sorry.
Do we need a motion to receive their annual report for record?
Ms. Lee, is that necessary?
I can tell you we've done it both ways in the past, so if you want to accept the report, that's fine. Just if somebody would make a motion, that would be great.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers. So we've got a motion to receive the report. Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Cohen. We'll take a roll call vote.
Chair Smith,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Hagan, Commissioner Hagan, Myers,
Yes.
motion carried 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Myers. So now we'll have the Executive Director's annual evaluation process. Is Ms. Lee going to lead us through that?
I believe that's going to be Elaine DeLue.
Oh,
who's
sorry.
On the line.
Okay,
Correct.
Ms.
Yes.
DeLue.
Elaine DeLue is our Director of Admin and Finance, and so she'll be handling this.
Ms. DeLue, you're up.
Good morning. Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Elaine DeLue, EPC staff. Ms. Doherty's employment agreement requires the Commission conduct an evaluation every December or soon after In preparation for that, we'll do a briefing on the process, at least one meeting before you conduct your evaluation. We anticipate this evaluation to occur at the January EPC meeting. The process is as follows. The Commission periodically approves EPC strategic plan, including agency goals. You receive quarterly updates of agency goals in the agenda packets. Ms. Doherty provides her annual report, which you heard today, and she provides a self-evaluation to you, which contains accomplishments and milestones for the past fiscal year. EPC administration staff deliver blank evaluation forms and ranking criteria to you. If you'd like, you can schedule to meet with them. After you've reviewed the annual report and self-evaluation, please fill out the evaluation forms and return them in hard copy or electronically to EPC's chair by December 1st. The chair sent them back to EPC administration and will compile the scores, and you'll have an open discussion at the January commission meeting. There's no action necessary to take today. We just wanted to inform you of the process and see if you had any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. I see no questions about the process. I think we're all familiar with it.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty, anything to add?
No, Commissioners.
Okay. Thank you very much. And our last agenda item then is the Executive Director report. Back to you, Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Commissioner. I only have 7 slides, and I'm going to take some liberty here. Some of the commissioners were interested in red tide. I have 3 slides for red tide. I'm going to let Chris Pratt deliver those slides in case you have questions, because he's the one who's, not put together the slides, but is very familiar with what's going on in the Bay. So with that, I'll introduce Chris to go over these first 3 slides.
Thank you, Janet. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Chris Pratt, and I am EPC staff with the Woodard Division. I'm going to provide you a brief update to the red tide situation in Tampa Bay and Southwest Florida. Next slide, please. This map is courtesy of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and focuses on Tampa Bay. In this map, the gray dots indicate sampling locations where the red tide organism, Carenia brevis, was not present. White dots indicate very low concentrations. Yellow dots indicate low concentrations. Orange dots indicate medium concentrations. And red dots indicate high concentrations, which, as you can see, are not presently occurring anywhere in Tampa Bay or Hillsborough County waters. Very low to medium concentrations of Carenia brevis were reported by FWC in lower Tampa Bay over the last week, south of Hillsborough County and off the Manatee County coast. Next slide, please. This map shows EPC's Tampa Bay monitoring runs for the month of October. These are runs 1 and 1-2, and they are for upper and middle Tampa Bay. And red tide was not found in any of these samples as indicated by the gray dots. Our lower Tampa Bay run, run 3, was scheduled for this week, but had to be moved to next week due to high winds. Next slide, please. This map shows FWC's red tide reporting for the entire state of Florida. This map is again courtesy of FWC. Patchy areas of the red tide organism, Carenia brevis, persist along Florida's Gulf Coast from the Panhandle down to Charlotte County. Concentrations of Carenia brevis are occurring off the Pinellas County coast into the south of Tampa Bay in Manatee and Sarasota counties. Fish kills associated with red tide have occurred along the beach areas and to the south. However, we have not had any recent reports of dead fish in Tampa Bay or in Hillsborough County waters due to red tide. In conclusion, while Hillsborough County is looking good at the moment, red tide still persists offshore and does have the ability to move into Tampa Bay and out of Tampa Bay due to winds and tides, and we will remain vigilant. And with that, I will turn it back over to Janet.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the report. And again, obviously it's not in Tampa Bay, but it is on the external coast. And again, I think you are moving forward with a fertilizer ordinance. Again, nutrients exacerbate all types of algal bloom issues. So it's important to stay vigilant on removing all nutrient sources that we can in a reasonable manner from the Bay. So with that, thank you so much, Chris. And I'll move on to my next slide. Does anyone have questions for Chris?
Yeah, I just have one.
Oh, hold on, Chris. Back to the slide. I apologize.
Commissioner Cohen.
I just wondered, I mean, it is right off our coast on the Pinellas beaches and
Oh, it is.
down in Manatee and Sarasota. So is there any explanation that is apparent about why that is, or any kind of prognosis about whether or not, now that we're in the fall, we should expect it to subside? Just a little context around it?
I'm going to let Chris address that, but I would like to say the interesting thing, well, first of all, there's winds coming up in the next week or so that may blow it out. However, typically Karenia brevis is worse in the fall, in the winter, and so we've had it bad in the summer. So if winds come and flush it the other way, you see it's right at the mouth of the bay. But I don't have a crystal ball. Maybe Chris has his crystal ball.
Thanks, Janet. No, unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball either, but yes, you are correct. Typically, red tide season is at the end of the summer, into the fall, and into the winter. We saw red tide can occur in any month, but we saw it during the summer, which we typically don't. That was due to the Piney, we believe, of course, because of the Piney Point situation. Typically, at the end of the summer, a lot of the beliefs is the occurring releases that come out of Lake Okeechobee into Charlotte Harbor over the summer start to bloom down in that area, and then it drifts up north to us. We had a red tide situation in 2018 that started out south of us and eventually came into Tampa Bay. And again, like Janet just said, it's all depending on winds, the tides, which way it's going to flush. So we really don't have a crystal ball to say what's going to happen. But the red tide is a naturally occurring organism. It typically starts offshore, but as it gets closer to the shoreline, then the nutrients that are there tend to make our blooms worse, and it can get in Tampa Bay. But the takeaway here is we're not seeing the conditions that we saw in Hillsborough County. If we go back 2 slides, or actually just 1 slide. But either one of those is fine. But this is middle Tampa Bay and old Tampa Bay up in upper Tampa Bay area. We were seeing red tide in middle Tampa Bay in the middle of the summer. We are not seeing that right now. So this is not the same situation that we had after the Piney Point situation. And we typically do not see red tide in these areas in the fall into winter months. So I hope to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And just while we're wrapping up that piece of the presentation, the County Commission did just vote yesterday to set the public hearing for our Hillsborough County fertilizer ordinance that we will be having the public hearing at 10 a.m. on November 17th. And I am very much hoping that we'll be able to pass that. It will match the ordinance that has been in place for over 10 years in Pinellas County and the city of Tampa, but for the sales ban that is preempted by the state. But everything else will be consistent around the bay of fertilizer regulations, protecting the bay, and our own contribution to that, if Hillsborough County does indeed pass that on November 17th, is it will, from what I've been told by the scientists who know more than I do, it will keep several tons of nitrogen out of the bay every year. So that would be an improvement, not only for red tide, but for, I guess in conjunction with red tide and the other forms of algae, it would help our seagrasses and wildlife, because we've been losing seagrass in Tampa Bay over the last few years. So this would be a big help. And with that,
Commissioner, I totally concur. We've lost 6,000 acres. We're going to do the audit again for seagrasses in 2022. We don't know if that's all nutrients, but certainly they play a part in it. And we don't want to lose any more seagrasses. I know climate, our bay is warmer, that may be causing that, but anything you can do to keep nutrients out of a water body, that is a benefit to the water body. And I do want to say about the fertilizer ordinance, the other thing that I think is a very important thing that you're going to embark upon is the education. And so as the public becomes educated and you're maximizing your messaging with other municipalities, you're going to see more reductions. And it's voluntary reductions because they don't know, but once they're educated, people want to do the right thing. And so I know there was a Be Floridian campaign with the estuary program years ago. I think that would be a lovely thing for the county commission to get involved in, but the reality is any education that goes along with that fertilizer ordinance is going to be a benefit, a BMP.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And with that, we're going to go to my next.
Oh, excuse me, I still have Commissioner Overman.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, thank you. Before you run away, I did have a quick question as it pertained to red tide. You mentioned that red tide tends to pick up in the winter months. Usually it's our drier season.
It's right now.
And I noticed that where we see incidents of it now is, in the Sarasota area for the flushing that occurs off of that river. But in the Pinellas area, it looks like it's right off the beaches. So I'm curious if there's been a correlation between wastewater aging systems or septic, because in the winter months when it's not raining and flushing the waters out or flushing fertilizers out, but bottom line flushing, without that flushing, it sounds like we've got something that's creating that nutrient load that has red tide survive well. But that may be also what's causing our seagrass shift to the plant that does better on nutrients. So I'm just curious, have we been able to identify if septic systems or aging wastewater systems may be correlated to where the concentrations and when the concentrations occur?
Well, Commissioner, I'll let you know that I get the state warning point every day. And there really have not been many releases in Pinellas or here. Now, Sarasota has had some releases of untreated wastewater, and that was even on the news. In Bay County, I don't know what their infrastructure is right there on the Panhandle. It's a beautiful estuary. They have many releases like every day, even when there's not rain, so they must have aging infrastructure. St. Pete put in a new put that infrastructure in place and took the old one offline. Maybe at some point they need to add. I think really what's going to happen over time, municipalities for the commercial wastewater are going to need to add more capacity. They don't design for these floods, for the sea level rise. They're designed for a normal event. Well, we're not having normal events. We're having rainfalls where sometimes there's 5 inches in an hour, so just ungodly amounts of rain. So investments in infrastructure is going to be important. As far as septic tanks, those are dealt with by the Department of Health. They were preempted, I want to say 15, maybe 20 years ago from the state legislature. Other states do inspections at point of sale. We do not. And nor do we require any inspections of any aging systems. So there's no way to tell all of these systems that exist on the coast exactly what's happening. But if you ever saw pictures of the Keys years ago, you could actually see what was happening. You could see the change in water color as effluent was affecting it. So I don't think we're there yet, but there's really no way to calculate the septic system part of it. So, but this year, I do believe that Hillsborough County and Pinellas County have been very good as they can without maybe a problem where a contractor hits a pipe and they repair it quickly and they contain it on site. I don't think there's been a whole lot. There's been little releases here and there, but nothing that is substantial.
Okay.
That's my thinking. Chris, would you agree with that? Or Sam Robbie, you're on the phone too?
We can't hear him.
Yes, Commissioner Samuel Robbie with EPC staff. Janet is correct. Hillsborough County and Pinellas County fared well in terms of raw sewage releases compared to the rest of the state. And it is pretty difficult to really quantify septic tank contribution and whatever portion of it that would make it into the bay to trigger these blooms. Red tide is a natural occurring organism. It's always in the Gulf of Mexico. It drifts closer to the shoreline. And this is where the problem is. It finds the food, which is the nutrients, it blooms and creates a problem to the extent we can cut that contribution of food to the bloom. That would help relieve the issue. So we're on the right track with the fertilizer ordinance to prevent feeding the beast, if you will. But it is pretty difficult to quantify septic tank contribution or malfunctions and whatever portion of those that makes it to the bay and feeds the issue. But this is a statewide problem, and it occurs typically in late summer, early fall, and it goes into the cooler months of the year, and sometimes it may stay an entire year. And depending on the wind, tide, currents, those natural issues, that would give us the most impact. If they're favorable, going away from us, then it pushes the bloom offshore and away. If they're coming this way, that means we have to deal with it more frequent. Luckily, over the years, Hillsborough County did not have to deal as much with it as Pinellas, Manatee, and Sarasota counties. So this year, with the intensity of it, it came into the bay proper, but it did not last too long. It was a pretty big nuisance to a lot of citizens in terms of fish kill and the stench that we experienced, but it dissipated pretty quickly, and it's outside. Our sampling, which we continue to do, has shown that we're faring pretty well in terms of the bay segments proper. So it's a statewide issue. There's no single answer you can point to, but we stay vigilant with our sampling and coordination with the rest of the state and local agencies.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you for that. And part of the reason I'm asking is because I do recognize that we in Hillsborough County have a septic tank problem. And last year, or last session, the state actually swept part of the affordable housing, the Sadowski Trust, to go towards septic systems, or to address septic to sewer systems. But if there's no monitoring or any way that we could actually do any inspection process in place to determine where the greatest risks are, not only to our residents, but also to our environment, that's problematic. And since there has been about 25% of the Sadowski Trust set aside for septic to sewer, I think it would be wise to see if there's ways that we can address that barrier to analysis, because now there's resources there to possibly assist us that we're not going to have for affordable housing, but we could have for this particular issue if we asked. So that's why I wanted to see if there any correlation, but since we're not able to determine that, that's a little frustrating. So I think we could probably work on that if we could. So.
And Commissioner, again, it's not our jurisdiction, it's the Department of Health, but my understanding, there's been a lot of discussions that the Department of Health is going to turn it over to the DEP. There's a new individual at the Southwest District. Her name's Kelly Boatwright. She used to work in the Waste Division at the EPC, and I will talk with her, but it probably should be with the DEP. And I actually think the Department of Health is going to send staff over to the DEP, people that are already working on it. But all those talks are ongoing. But I'll get that information, and I'll get that back to you. But that's been an issue. We have 200 lakes in Hillsborough County. It's not just the coastline. And on many of these lakes, systems that have been there 30, 40 years. And nobody's, you can still flush your toilet, but the system is probably not functioning, and it's probably leaching. All people care is, can I flush the toilet? But it's going, and listen, you're at the bottom of the bathtub with the lake, so where is it going? It always goes downhill. So it is a concern, but I will try and get you as much information. And if there's a way that I can get the DEP or the Department of Health to go after the Swiderski funds, the 25%, maybe there is something that Hillsborough County could do.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And if I may, the impact of septic system leaching into the environment, although it's not yet been quantified exactly how many parts per million is turning into algae. It's clear that this is part of the cause of red tide with all its economic and impacts as well as quality of life impacts. But beyond that, septic tanks leaching into the rivers and coastlines just like frequently cause those notices to go up that you can't swim in in the water off of and our own areas, E.G. Simmons Park, the Little Harbor, Shell Point, Bahia Beach area, as well as finding high fecal coliform counts and E. coli in like the Little Manatee River, for example, where children swim, ski, and people fish and eat the fish they catch. So it's a health issue on top of the whole red tide issue with septic tanks. And I agree that we need every penny of the Sadowski Fund to stay in the Affordable Housing Fund, but I am glad we're getting $20 million from the state to convert Gibsonton, which is right on the coast of the bay, and I am glad we are have begun thinking about using some of the ARP federal funds for septic to sewer conversion in Hillsborough County, because it's a problem with multiple impacts. Commissioner Cohen.
I just wanted to add that also Congresswoman Castor has been working, I've been working with her on this to get money for Town and Country for septic to sewer conversions there. But I was also going to mention the Gibsonton. That is a big deal because that is going to take, I think there's 26,000 septic tanks that need to be converted to sewer in unincorporated Hillsborough. And I believe that one is, that Gibsonton money is going to go a long way. And that's a piece of good news in the midst of what you obviously identify as a huge challenge for us. So great.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty, you can go on with some more slides.
Okay, I only have, I think, 3 or 4 more slides. If you could, James, if you could pull my slides up, that would be great. Okay. Between the 2003 and 2013 time period, in response to a DRI requirement and at the behest of Commissioner Miller, we conducted a study to determine if the surface dust and radiation from gyp stacks were negatively impacting surrounding schools and nearby residents. This was brought up at our last meeting, and that's why I'm presenting this. This is for information only. But specifically, Air Division staff monitored for increases in transient dust levels, and the Bureau of Radiation Control monitored for increases in ambient radon gas and gamma energy levels from the active stack. And obviously from 2003 to 2013, anyone who's familiar with that area, Commissioner Myers, I know you are very much, and Commissioner Cohen as well, the stack's grown bigger. So you requested that we look to doing the study again. We've reached out. There's a figure on here. But this slide is just a heads up, and we'll be back in November to bring this item back as an agenda item for action so that the commission can take a formal vote and we can move forward with doing another radon study. And again, we're working with the Department of Health, and we'll see where these funds will come from, if we can leverage funds or do PRF or something like that. So that was that slide. Next slide, unless anyone has questions. Next slide, please. Commissioners, I am pleased to announce that Sterling Woodard will be moving from the Air Division Director spot to the Wetlands Division Director spot. And I want to congratulate Reggie Sanford as he is being promoted to the position of the Air Division Director. This will all start on November 1st. Obviously, Mr. Woodard's been very involved with Gopher and EnviroFocus. He was part of that investigation, and we're working through the consent order process. He will still be involved in that one aspect, but Reggie is the person that you need to contact for the Air Division, and Sterling is the Wetlands Division. Thank you guys for stepping up to the plate. I appreciate all your efforts and your diligent work. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Last month, several staff members and I attended the annual Tampa Bay Association of Environmental Professions Women in STEM workshop. Attendees had the opportunity to engage with, learn from, and network with top women leaders from both the public and the private sectors. I am a strong supporter of these STEM networking events and their importance as they serve to connect women and foster relationships that can help them navigate their career paths. This was a wonderful event, and I met 3 very qualified women coming out of USF looking for environmental jobs, so it's almost like a mini career fair as well. So it works out that way too. Next slide, please. Oh, let's go back the slide before. I'll just point out that in this slide here, obviously you have Miss Lee, who's with our, in the general counsel area in our legal division with Rick Marotti and Andy Zadro. Myself, Michelle Jenkins is in the other blue shirt. She is our sustainability coordinator, and Chantel Lee is in our Wetlands Division director. She's on the other side. So the picture of the 4 women they're all at EPC. Next slide, please. And with that, that concludes my report for today. Our next meeting is November 18th. Commissioners, in an abundance of caution, we are very sad, but we will not have Thanksgiving this year. But hopefully, keep our fingers crossed, next year we will have Thanksgiving, because as Commissioner Smith will tell you, it's a lovely event. Everybody, we just had a bunch of alumnus come by for a drive-by for Andy Schipfer, and they're like, are you having Thanksgiving? Are you having Thanksgiving? No, we're not going to do it. We're going to do a little hybrid thing with the staff online, but next year.
Oh, thank you, because that Thanksgiving is a hot ticket. It's enjoyed by everyone. And I just want to wrap up with congratulations to Reggie Sanford and Sterling Woodard. When I talked about the delicate nature of being the director position of the Wetlands Division, I am very happy and grateful to see Mr. Woodard being chosen to advance into that or switch into that position, because he's got what it takes. And he's got the passion as well as the personality to really be able to represent us well in that regard. And also very happy to see Reggie Sanford's move. So thank you very much, Ms. Doherty. You are doing us well in your management of the team and the resources.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And unless anyone has any future items, we are about to adjourn, and we will adjourn. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
See you in
Have a
November.
good afternoon.
Oh.